In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King and Moroccan monarch Mohammed VI hold talks in Casablanca on ties and regional issues. As Iraqi forces and militias fight their way into the city of Tikrit, the U.S. Senate begins considering authorization for the campaign against Daesh terrorists. And Japan will offer Jordan $17.5 million in additional aid to finance the health projects in the kingdom. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King and Moroccan King Mohammed VI held talks in Casablanca. The two leaders discussed ways of cementing Jordanian-Moroccan ties, as well as the latest regional and international developments. His Majesty also met with Moroccan Prime Minister Abdelilah bin Kiran and House Speaker Rashid Al-Alami to discuss scopes for broader cooperation between the two countries in various fields. The King told the Moroccan Prime Minister of the need to bolster relations and boost the role of the joint Jordanian-Moroccan Higher Committee in achieving their interests. He also told the Moroccan House Speaker of the importance of exchanging legislative expertise between the two parliaments, especially regarding developments of the work of political parties. Upon arrival at the Royal Palace in Casablanca, King Abdullah was accorded an official welcoming ceremony led by King Mohammed and attended by a number of Moroccan officials. King Abdullah, accompanied by Her Majesty Queen Rania, arrived in Casablanca yesterday at the end of a European working trip. Iraqi security forces backed by militias fought their way into the key city of Tikrit, advancing from the north and south in their biggest counteroffensive so far against Daesh militants. Daesh militants in their stronghold of Anbar, west of the capital, launched 13 suicide car bomb attacks on army and security positions in the city of Ramadi. Local officials said army and militia fighters captured part of Tikrit's northern Qadisiyah district, while a security officer said another force made a rapid push towards the center. More than 20,000 troops and Shiite militias known as Hashd Sha'bi, supported by local Sunni tribes, launched the offensive for Tikrit 10 days ago, advancing from the east and along the east bank of the Tigris River. Yesterday, they took the town of Al-Alam on the northern edge of Tikrit, paving the way for an attack on the city itself. Meanwhile, U.S. and coalition forces conducted 13 airstrikes against Daesh in Iraq and 2 in Syria since yesterday. The U.S. military said 5 of the strikes in Iraq were centered on the Daesh-held city of Mosul, and 3 each were aimed near Fallujah and Al-Qa'im, destroying buildings, vehicles, and artillery. It said the Syria strikes destroyed 2 Daesh vehicles near Kobani and hit multiple oil pump jackets near Al-Hasaka. Meanwhile, Turkey closed 2 border crossings with Syria as a security precaution as fighting around the northern Syrian city of Aleppo intensifies. Turkish customs and government officials said the crossings have been shut to vehicles and individuals crossing from Syria since Monday. U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter said the United States does not appear to have clear-cut legal authority to protect Syrian rebels it trains from attacks by Syrian government forces, even under new war powers. Still, Carter told Congress a final determination had not yet been made. His remarks underscore the deep uncertainty surrounding a U.S. military-led training program expected to get underway in the coming weeks, with the goal of training over 5,000 fighters a year. Carter spoke at a hearing as senators began considering President Obama's request for a formal authorization for the 7-month-old campaign against Daesh. This report has the details.
U.S. President Barack Obama's war authorization request for his campaign against Daesh terror group is a divisive issue in Capitol Hill. Members of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee made clear they had serious concerns about his war plan. Secretary of State John Kerry, Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, and General Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, testified at a hearing as senators begin considering Obama's request for a formal authorization for the 7-month-old campaign against the militant group.
I believe that much of our strategy with regards to ISIS is being driven by a desire not to upset Iran so that they don't walk away from the negotiating table on the deal that you're working on. Tell me why I'm wrong.
There is no grand bargain being discussed here in the context of this negotiation. This is about a nuclear weapon potential. That's it. And the President has made it absolutely clear they will not get a nuclear weapon.
For some Democrats, the problem with Obama's war plan was its unclear geographic restrictions or limits for the use of ground troops. Carter testified that the administration sees a more limited campaign than has been undertaken in other recent wars.
This is really focused on ISIL. And the associated forces there, when they engage in operations against us or our coalition partners, as the text says, and that can be interpreted, but has not yet been interpreted, to cover other groups like Boko Haram.
Many Republicans who often criticize Obama's foreign policy as too timid want the authorization for the use of military force to have fewer restrictions on military commanders battling Daesh. Obama's request for military force has made little progress since he sent it to Congress a month ago and may never pass due largely to opposition from his fellow Democrats. Some Democrats also want the proposal to repeal the 2001 authorization passed for the fight against Al-Qaeda, one of the authorities that the Obama administration is using for the Daesh fight. Khulad for the news at 10.
A video posted online by Daesh terrorists yesterday showed the killing of Muhammad Musallam, an Israeli Arab accused by the group of having signed up as a jihadi to spy for Israeli intelligence service, the Mossad. The video appeared to show Musallam sitting in a room wearing an orange jumpsuit, talking about how he had been recruited. After that, Musallam was shown being escorted to a field and executed by a boy with a shot to the forehead, accompanied by an older French man. The authenticity of the video could not be confirmed, and Israel and Musallam's family denied that he was a spy. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said lawmakers cannot modify any nuclear agreement struck between the United States and Iran, despite threats by Republican senators that they can. In congressional testimony, Kerry said he responded with utter disbelief at an open letter signed by 47 Republican senators that threatened to undo any nuclear agreement reached between Tehran and Washington.
We've been clear from the beginning. We're not negotiating a, quote, legally binding plan. We're negotiating a plan that will have in it a capacity for enforcement. We don't even have diplomatic relations with Iran right now. And the senator's letter erroneously asserts that this is a legally binding plan. It's not. That's number one. Number two, it's incorrect when it says that Congress could actually modify the terms of an agreement at any time. That's flat wrong.
Jordan and Japan signed 3 grants and more local and international news, but after this short break. His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin Hussein, the Regent, welcomed a U.S. delegation representing the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, led by veteran diplomat Dennis Ross. Prince Faisal and the American team discussed regional and international developments. The Regent said Jordan would stand behind efforts to bring about peace and boost Middle East security and stability. The fight against terrorism also figured high on the meeting, where Prince Faisal noted that His Majesty King Abdullah had reiterated the need for a collective approach involving all parties to address the menace of terrorism. Also up for discussion were reform milestones Jordan had taken as part of a comprehensive and gradual approach. Jordan and Japan signed 3 memoranda in which Tokyo will provide the kingdom with 3 grants worth $17.5 million. 2 of the grants, outside regular Japanese aid to the kingdom, aim to provide medical equipment to the health ministry as well as medical appliances to the Prince Hamze Government Hospital. The 3rd grant by the Japan International Cooperation Agency will be used to finance the Petra Museum project, which is estimated to cost $7 million. Minister of Planning and International Cooperation Imad Fakhuri, who signed the agreement with the Japanese ambassador, thanked Tokyo for its continued aid and its understanding of the challenges Jordan is facing. Israel's center-left Zionist Union appears slightly ahead of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud, according to polls 1 week ahead of elections. The early elections for the 20th Knesset, or parliament, will be held on March 17. The results showed the center-left Zionist Union opposition seeking to win 25 seats in the 120-seat Knesset. No party has ever won a majority in Israel, so the challenge is in trying to form a coalition after the election. The 120 seats in the Knesset are elected by proportional representation in a single nationwide constituency. The United States targeted 8 Ukrainian separatists in a Russian bank with sanctions and announced more non-lethal aid for Ukraine. Washington is ratcheting up pressure on Moscow a day after it said Russia sent tanks and heavy military equipment into Ukraine in breach of the Minsk Accord agreed upon on February 12th. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg called for the warring parties in Ukraine to help foreign monitors reinforce a ceasefire. Stoltenberg and the top NATO commander, U.S. General Philip Breedlove, said their priority was to see monitors from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe given safe and free access to reinforce the truce. The NATO chief said he was concerned that weaponry which was not being monitored could be repositioned for future combat.
OSCE needs to have full access to both the border but also the area where the ceasefire is meant to take place, including the line and the area where the movement of heavy weapons is supposed to take place.
A fully clothed dog is catching people's attention in China's Sichuan province. The 1-year-old male poodle, wearing a hat and a skirt and a shirt, has been trained to walk on his hind legs for the amusement of passers-by. Walking with a school backpack on his back, the dog looked like a little schoolgirl. The dog's owner said he has spent 2 months training him to walk upright. The dog can walk about 2 kilometers on his hind legs. And from the dog walk to the catwalk, Montclair Gamme Rouge recreated an autumn horse ride through the country at Paris Fashion Week, complete with red riding coats and leaves underfoot. Everything indeed except the horses. But there were horse round effects at the show, which featured checked skirts and jackets with fur trims and matching riding helmets. One model wore a coat encrusted with black and white flowers, while others sported 5-inch heeled boots. But the collection breathes some fresh air through Fashion Week, with models with flyaway hair and rosy cheeks in winter tweeds. Australia's Michael Matthews won the uphill sprint finish to take the overall lead after stage 3 of the Paris-Nice cycle race. The rider beat Italian David Kimale and Gigoma Nicolo in the line to take victory and the yellow jersey from Poland's Michał Kwiatkowski. The pelotons had caught the final breakaway group of Astana, Romain Bardet and Jan Backlands with 2 kilometers remaining. France's sporting community remembered their fellow athletes killed in a helicopter crash in Argentina during filming of a reality TV show earlier this week. Hundreds of athletes and French sporting officials gathered at the French National Institute for Sports in Paris, where many of France's future champions are trained. An Olympic swimmer, a yachtswoman, and a boxer were among those killed in the accident when 2 helicopters collided in a remote region of Argentina. The French sports minister addressed the crowd gathered in the large hall and called for a minute's silence. And finally, showers are forecast for most areas with thundery downpours tonight and during the early morning hours. Tomorrow, a tangible drop in temperature will create relatively cold conditions with scattered thundery rain and hail expected across much of the hilly areas. Rains, however, are expected to taper off during the evening hours. The Gulf of Aqaba can expect some showers tonight as well, but overall conditions remain fair with northerly brisk winds and choppy seas. The weatherman warns of poor visibility due to dust and cautions motorists due to slippery roads. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King and Moroccan monarch Mohammed VI hold talks in Casablanca on ties and regional issues. As Iraqi forces and militias fight their way into the city of Tikrit, the U.S. Senate begins considering authorization for the campaign against Daesh terror group. And Japan will offer Jordan $17.5 million in additional aid to finance the health projects in the kingdom. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.